Hello everyone. So welcome to our course on Indian modern history, or this is our fourth session. So this particular session is dedicated to the British and its conquest of Bengal. So what we have done in the previous session, let us very quickly recall what we have been doing in our previous session. In the previous session, we have already done, that is the entry of the Portuguese and how their empire collapsed. In the next session, we talked about the uh, that is the later Mughals, right? The whole story of later Mughals. And then we talked about in the third session, the British, how they extract, how they basically, the European challenge they overcome, right? And one question I have given you. Today's session will be focused on how British were able to take over of the one of the most precious possession within India, that is Bengal. It was the richest province in India, and it was the most important politically as well. Let's start our session. Let's start with a few questions beforehand. So first is, which of the following first was the first fort being built, which was the first fort being constructed by the Britishers in India? Fort William, Fort George, Fort St. David, and Fort Angelo. So what is the answer? We have discussed that last time. So first fort being constructed was the Fort St. George, that was in Madras. It was constructed in 1639, and it was one of the first fort, being first English fortress in India. Okay. Last time also I told you these forts are very important. For example, today we will discuss this Fort William, Fort George we have discussed, or these two forts are your homework. Please see these forts and add to your notes. These forts are very important, and you need to remember them, recall them, because you again a question can be repeated in any other format. For example, they can ask you to arrange them, let's say on a whole India. They can arrange, okay, these forts, arrange them north to south or east to west, or they can ask you to arrange them chronologically. That would be a tough question on the modern history. Okay. Next question is, in 1613, where was the East India Company given the permission to set up the factory post? At which place the East India Company was given a permission to set up the factory post? Please, if you recall. Now, remember, we are talking in the times of the Jahangir, isn't it? Talking in the times of the Jahangir. And remember 1611, what was the battle? That is Battle of Swali, in which the British have defeated the Portuguese at this particular place. And impressed by this, the Jahangir has awarded them, okay, go ahead and set up your base at Surat. Later on, conflict started at Surat. That's a very different case. But that was the factory. In 1613, they have been given permission to set up their factory in Surat, okay, given by the Jahangir. Right. Let's move on. Now, let's come back to the lecture. Now, this is the framework, right? When we have the Mughals, later Mughals, when the Mughals get weak, the regional states become very assertive, and the Europeans also started getting some leverage. This has been the framework which I followed in the previous sessions. Now, one of the regional states we're going to see is Bengal. When the Mughal Empire, you can see the extent of the Mughal Empire, which was the largest in the reign of the Aurangzeb. You can see 1707. That is the death of the Aurangzeb. You can see till this period, Aurangzeb has occupied the territory, including the previous other colors as well. Okay. Now, if you see here, if you see the successor states of Mughal, this period, this area, you can see the Hyderabad, you can see Mysore, some area of new and some area of old. You can see Carnatic, some area of old, some area of new. You can see Travancore, which was an independent kingdom always. Some area was there, somewhere in between. You can see the other states, for example, new states being formed, such as Rajputs. You can see Bengal emerging as a, this is the map in 1730. This is a Bengal, you can see Awadh, this region, Awadh. So when your Mughal authority, basically authority is weakening, your regional kingdom assertion is increasing. Okay, so this is the trend which we have discussed, which we'll see in the Mysore next lecture, that is the Mysore story also. Okay, now one of the regions that we're going to study is Bengal today. Next turn we will read about the story of the Mysore. Now let us see. So when the Mughal Empire collapsed, when it got weak, the regional kingdom assertion started. And you have three types of kingdoms. Some of the successor states, some became independent, and some became the new states which were there. Successor states, they were originally the part of Mughal, Hyderabad, Carnatic, Bengal, and our independent Maratha, Sikh, Afghans, the new states, Mysore, Kerala, and Rajput, Travancore, basically. So this was the many regional kingdoms which were getting up in India, and that was the situation in the 1730s to later on, till the time British again consolidated their reign over the India. That is why there was a question being asked in UPSC, we'll discuss it somewhere, that mid 18th century, a lot of chaos was there in India. A lot of regional kingdoms were there in India. So you are supposed to draw this map also. So ये map ऐसे ही नहीं है just for the understanding, but also um, for your own understanding. You should draw your own map in your copies, in your notes. कि भाई ऐसे ऐसे करके you need to draw your own notes map. ठीक है? So that you also have a handwritten idea. Okay, this is where I'll draw the map if it comes in the UPSC exam. Everything has to be very exam oriented. Remember it. Then we talk about the Bengal. In Bengal, let us understand the chronology. Now in the Bengal, it became independent, semi-independent kingdom, or the with the Murshid Quli Khan. You can see 1717 to 1727. There was a seminal thing that happened in 1777. What was that? That was Farooq Siyar's Farman, isn't it? So Murshid Quli Khan established his own kingdom. He became the first Nawab of Bengal. Then his son-in-law Shujauddin from 1727 to 1739. Then his son Sarfaraz Khan, he reigned only for 1 year. Then he was killed by the Alivardi Khan. Then Alivardi Khan reigned for 16 years here, Alivardi Khan. And then his grandson, that is Sirajuddaulah, finally was the last Nawab who acted independently, you can say. So Sirajuddaulah from 1757 to 1756. And with the Sirajuddaulah, what happened? The very famous Battle of Plassey. Okay. With Sirajuddaulah happened this Battle of Plassey. Right? After Sirajuddaulah, when the British have won Battle of Plassey, then again some turmoil was there. Earlier, the person who helped British to become the king, became the ruler of this place, Mir Jafar, the traitor, became the Nawab for some time. Then Mir Qasim, Mir Jafar did something. We'll discuss what. Then he was replaced by Mir Qasim. Then Mir Qasim again did something, did not like by British. Then again Mir Jafar was placed. In between, the second battle happened. That was Battle of Buxar. That was Battle of Buxar happened in between. Okay, right. So this is the basic chronology of the Bengal Nawabs. What you need to remember? You need to remember few names. First, you need to remember Murshid Quli Khan. देखो याद क्या क्या करना है. Murshid Quli Khan you need to remember. Then remember, let's say Alivardi Khan, and then Sirajuddaulah. And after Sirajuddaulah, you need to remember this chronology, this small chronology that you need to remember. This small chronology are expected to remember. Okay. Now let's talk about Bengal before these Nawabs happened. Let's talk about the 17th century, that is 1600s, right? If you remember, we have read about Bengal. The Portuguese have got hold over the Hooghly area in Bengal. Hooghly area, now you know all the maps you can know. Hooghly is a very famous map. Pata hai Hooghly River. So, but you remember at that time, the Portuguese tried to influence the Akbar, and which was not liked by his son. So Akbar was happy, Akbar was tolerant, Akbar wanted to listen to them, but his sons backlashed. And when the backlash by the son was there, and you recall that they were driven out of the Bengal in 1631 by the then Nawab, that was then governor of Bengal, that is the Qasim Khan. Okay? At that time, governor. So that was the backlash of the son that we have discussed in our very first session. That how Portuguese decline in India. Remember? Now, in 17th century Bengal, when Portuguese was driven out, what happened? Portuguese was driven out. Who became the Subedar in 1641? 1641, the governor became Shah Shuja. Shah Shuja was the son of the Shah Jahan. Shah Jahan and Mumtaz Mahal. So he, in 1641 to 1651, he has given the permission to the East India Company to trade. Okay, Portuguese were out. East India Company was given the permission to trade. Okay, some permit, some money you have to pay us, and then you will get all the things you want, the trade permits and all these things. Shuja gave the free trade in these areas. Okay, you can trade freely in Bengal, Bihar, and Odisha for 3,000 per year. Shah Shuja. Then British obviously consolidated some power, some trading. They are doing the commercial things only. In 1696, they established this Fort William. Okay? And you remember in 1690s what happened? The problems between British and the French. And the Aurangzeb has to intervene. Remember, we have read when we're reading about the rivalry between the British and the French, what happened? In 1690s, Aurangzeb intervened and he said, दोनों को rebuke किया इसने. Then there was a period of calm in between till the death of the Aurangzeb. Aurangzeb did not like the fight which was happening with the British and the French. British, because French also established their center in Chandernagore. When in the introduction session that I have taken, I've told you that this first theme is a bit chaotic. You know, there are so many stakeholders, so many things going on simultaneously. So you need to recall or thoda revise. You need to do better. So French established their base at the Chandernagore, and this British were there in the Calcutta. So there was supposed to be inevitable conflicts. Was obviously needs will be there when they are doing the trade. When the other ones are doing the trade, conflicts is bound to come. And Aurangzeb said, no, these things will not happen. Then they have established a factory at Kazim Bazar. They went up north in the Bihar, modern day Bihar, and they set up some factories there. This was the story in your 17th century. Fort William, let us discuss about Fort William. So Fort William, basically there are two Fort Williams. If you went to Bengal, there are two fort. One is old building and second is a new building. So, but for our exam purpose, we need to remember that 1696, it was created by the British and it was named after the King William III. Situated in Calcutta, 1696. These are the things that we need to remember. And it is in this Fort William that we will study this Blackhole Tragedy. This happened. Okay, we'll see that. Now, why the Shah Shuja has given the treatment or trade permits to the Britishers? Why? Because it was a British surgeon who helped them out. For example, Shah Jahan's daughter got some burn she while her cloth got fire, and it was the English surgeon, that is Mr. Buckton. He gave them the help, and that is why the Mughals were happy. And in that regard, they said, okay, go ahead and do the trade. So this was the reason the British got the permits. Now you recall, we have studied the similar thing that happened during the reign of the Farooq Siyar as well. Remember, this happened a century before. This happened as Farooq Siyar. Farooq Siyar also got the treatment by a British official, that is a Wimel Hamilton. And after so happy with that, he has given the Farman, the Magna Carta of the British trade in the Bengal. That is the Farooq Siyar's Farman. It was, you can say at that time, it was a British soft power through journals, through surgeons, through medical officials, helping these Mughals out so that they can help them out in their trade. Okay? Chalo. Then we have the Farooq Siyar Farman, right? 1717 happened, Aurangzeb died, Farooq Siyar there, he helped the Farooq Siyar, was held by the Britishers. Farooq Siyar gave the Farman. It was a positive for the Britishers because we have seen that it was a Magna Carta of the British trade in Bengal. We have read all about it. Then Murshid Quli Khan became he became independent. So you can see two simultaneous things are happening, parallel things. On the one hand, you have the EIC, some of the positive things that they have got from this particular Farman. And on the other hand, you have the Murshid Quli Khan, who has become independent. He's become the Nawab, and now he's getting stronger as well. So later on, you can sense that this conflict is bound to come. Obviously, when you have the British who are getting strong commercially and someone who's getting strong politically, and obviously someone will try to encroach into the power of the other, whether the British will challenge them politically or the Nawab will not like the commercial activity of the Britishers, bound to come, inevitable. And that happened. So, for example, the Sirajud-Dowla was challenged by a lot of succession battles used to happen. So Sirajud-Dowla was challenged by some Ghaseti Begum. She was a daughter of Ali Vardi Khan. He was the grandson of the Ali Vardi Khan. From 1740 to 1756, Ali Vardi Khan was there, right? Succession battle. Now Britishers have supported this, the other candidate, and that is why Shiraj-ud-Daulah was not happy with the Britishers. Firstly, so this was the thing going on. This was the impact of the Farooq Siyar's Farman later on in the Bengal. Then you see in between all the Nawabs that have come, whether your let's say Murshid Quli Khan or then Ali Vardi Khan, who reigned for longer periods. Ali Vardi Khan in between, then Ali Vardi Khan. These have taken a lot of reforms as well. We'll see a few reforms in the question answer format. Then we'll look at into the Q&A. For example, they have given loans to the poor. Those loans were known as Takavi loans. So we'll see these reforms later on in the session. Let's continue our political story. So this is a political story going on, and the second parallel things are going on. And these parallel things are very, very important for UPSC. Okay? Political story is fine. We need to know that. But the parallel things that are there, social things, administrative things, these things become very, very important for the UPSC. Now, the conditions before the Plassey. Now, Siraj-ud-Daulah already suspicious of Britishers, what they have been doing in the succession battle, right? So he was worried about what they have done in the succession. At the time of my succession, I want to become Nawab, and the Britishers have supported the other party. At that time, you remember, the 7-year war was also going on. The British were started fortifying their factories in the Bengal because they were expecting some sort of an attack from the French, because French fight is going on, and they expected that their factories, their commercial establishments can be attacked in the Bengal also. So the British started the fortification of these factories in the Bengal. The British, the trade privileges that they have got through Farooq Siyar's Farman, they started misusing these trade privileges. Then harassment of the masses by the companies employee. Companies employee used to harass the masses. For example, the trade Farman, they'll say if you don't have the pass, you have to pay this money and this and that. So you tried to misuse it. And these people will complain to whom? These people will come and complain to the Nawab ki these things are happening. These are the foreigners who are doing these things. In between, some political things they have done as well. For example, they've given asylum to political fugitives. Political fugitive kya hote hain? For example, Julian Assange is a fugitive from USA, and he is in somewhere in the other, I think in Ecuador's embassy he's there. Similarly, you have the political fugitives such as Edward Snowden. He's a fugitive, isn't it? So the fugitive, those, for example, the person who Siraj-ud-Daulah does not like, and the Britishers have given refuge to these people. One of the example is Krishna Das. Okay? So he fled with the immense treasure versus the Nawab civil, and obviously Nawab did not like him, but the Britishers have given him the political refuge, so did not like him. Then he was also skeptical because at that time the Britishers has now got the hold of the Madras. They had the Madras, they have built this fort George, we have St. George, we have discussed, and Robert Clive was there. So there was a news that he can come any day. He can come any day, and he can capture the Bengal as well. So that is why Siraj-ud-Daulah thought that something fishy is going on, and I don't like these Britishers, what these Britishers are doing. Okay, these are the reasons. Then he said, no, this is the time I will act. He said the Britishers, okay, close down your everything and go home. He ordered the British to close down their factories, vacate their possessions in Calcutta and Qasim Bazar. And the Britishers said that we don't care, no care at all, we don't care. So they attacked the British stations at Calcutta. British troops were defeated by the army of the Siraj-ud-Daulah. British troops were defeated by the army of the Siraj-ud-Daulah. And the Fort William fell on the 20th June 1756. Sorry, 19, no, it's not 1756, it's 1756. And there are some people who are from the British who are there in this fort. The fort was captured, the Fort William that we have discussed. Some of the people of the Britishers were remained inside that fort, imagine, and they confined themselves, or this Nawab army confined themselves to a particular small room. And those room in which they were confined for the whole day. Okay? So Nawab started seizing the fort of Calcutta, and imprisoned many British officials in June 1756. The prisoners were kept in a dungeon in the Fort William. This incident is known as the Blackhole Tragedy of the Calcutta. Why? Because these people were kept in a very small space. When these are people in a very small space, then a lot of issues are there. No water, suffocation, and all these things. Only handful of the prisoners survived in the captivity. Over 100 people were kept in the cell meant only for 6 people. You can imagine a room that is kept only for 6 people, 100 people were kept. Imagine the place that was there. It is known as the Blackhole Tragedy. And when such action happens, it gives the sanction or the moral high-handedness to the Britishers to act on anything. मैं example देता हूँ आपको, understand this. For example, we will see later on in the Mahatma Gandhi time. So Mahatma Gandhi did not like the violence, but a small place of violence, Chauri Chaura, mein happened. Gandhi ji knew that if I allow this, what will happen? It will give the British the justification to apply any sort of violence that they want to commit on people. For example, मैंने आपको, let's say I did something very small negative thing I have done, but that negative thing will be a justification for you to do any extreme thing on me. If third party sees it, they will see, acha, he has done that because this is being done. So especially the British rule was based upon the idea of the British civilizational thing. British are a civilizational, they came on a civilizational mission, that they civilize these people. But they have seen that when these people have committed the tragedy of the black hole tragedy on us, what we will do? We will crush them. We will crush these Indians, these native peoples. And this has given them the moral high-handedness or moral justification, it is known as. Then when the black hole incident happened, everyone was very furious. The English were very furious. What is happening? Robert Clive was dispatched from Calcutta to secure back their position, that is Fort William. Right? The Calcutta captured by the British in 1757. And the Robert Clive said that I will attack the Nawab. And seeing their aggressiveness, Nawab was very furious. Not furious, and also fearful. Some small fight also happened in 4th Feb night 1757. And then they said, okay, Nawab came into panic that I cannot fight these people because they have the modern artillery, modern bombs, guns, and all these things. So Nawab said, okay, Treaty of Ali Nagar I will sign. So Ali Nagar is basically the name given to the Calcutta only. After it was captured by him, small sometime in between, Ali Nagar name was given by him. So they have signed a treaty. So your Nawab fled from, or he retreated from Calcutta to Murshidabad, that is within the West Bengal. Murshidabad also is within the West Bengal. That is, it's around 200 kilometers or 200 kilometers. The distance is there. So EIC has restored the factories and allowed the fortification. EIC ko. The Manik Chand, one of the officials, got the charge of the Calcutta, and the Nawab said, okay, I'm going to Murshidabad. So Nawab panicked and he said, okay, do your thing, and let's not fight together. I'll go to the Murshidabad, you will do your thing. And he has put his trusted official in charge of the Calcutta. So this is the story. Okay, fine, truce has happened. But again, the Battle of Plassey happened, because again these things were going on, and finally Nawab decided, no, I'll fight, and I'll fight the Britishers. So these are the two parties. Now the official on which the Nawab has placed a lot of trust, Sirajuddaulah, your Manik Chand and the Mir Jafar, who was the Mir Bakshi, that is the head of the army, they fled to the other side, and hence they are known as the traitors. Manik Chand, Mir Jafar, Jagat Seth, who was a banker who provided a finance to the British, Rai Durlab, Amir Chand. But there are also people who supported the Nawab, such as Mir Madan, Mohan Lal, and these are the people. So Sirajuddaulah had the army of more than 50,000, while the Robert Clive was only 300,000 troops. But because of the treachery being done to the Nawab, he lost the Battle of Plassey. In fact, it is said that the Battle of Plassey was never fought. In fact, he got some support from the French also. It is said that the Battle of Plassey was never fought, because before it was getting fought, one part of your army is getting merged with the other. What will happen? Obviously, you will lose. You will lose without fighting. Actually, there are some more stories that are associated with the Battle of Plassey. For example, which I have heard one, that there was raining a lot. So one side got all the protective covers, that is the British side, and the Sirajuddaulah side did not have the protective covers. So a lot of the resources were wasted of the Sirajuddaulah. It is one of the things that associated with the Battle of Plassey. But in any way, the significance of the Battle of Plassey lies in the way it has been the war has been done. In fact, there was no battle of Plassey. There was no battle as such. Okay? Now, Plassey itself is actually a place on the river Bhagirathi. It's a place near river Bhagirathi. Plassey, it is the name. But the Britishers, they cannot pronounce this, so they call it Plassey. So it's an anglicized version. So you can see anglicized as Plassey. It's a village on the bank of the Bhagirathi river. And the Plassey word itself is a Bengali word for the red flower tree. In fact, Plassey word itself comes from the Sanskrit word that is Palash. Okay, red flower tree. So there is a Palash trees there. Now, if we talk about the significance of the Battle of Plassey, so you can see that the Plassey, what happened? There the battle was never fought. You can see now the Britishers have emerged as a not only a trading company, but as a military company, military and political power. Isn't it? So military and political power is also there with the Britishers. And they have won one of the most precious possessions, that is Bengal. Bengal very wealthy because of the location of it, because of the earlier center that was there, the reforms taken by the Murshid Quli Khan and Ali Wardi Khan. So Bengal was a flourishing place that they got, and the British establishes Bengal as a place for their next venture against Mysore, against Maratha, against the in the north. Okay? And then they'll capture the whole India. So these were the significance of the Battle of Plassey. So battle which was never fought. EIC lost only 65 people. Nawar lost only 500 people. There's no 65 and 500 is a very less amount. The British conspiracy tactics and the treason was better than the military superiority. In fact, they won because of this tactics and the treasons by the Indians. AIC emerged as a kingmaker because they made Mir Jafar as the Nawab, who was the Mir Bakshi. Who was earlier the Mir Bakshi, he was made the Nawab. This promise was given, and the Britishers were given the zamindari rights of the places in the Bengal, and the rich resources of the Bengal, which will help them to win wars later on. For example, if you recall, 1760 there was a famous battle that happened. That was a battle of Wandiwash between British and the French. That was a part of the 7-year war between the 7-year war between the British and the French, which was happening. In 1760, Battle of Wandiwash happened and they lost. So they virtually monopolized, these Britishers virtually monopolized the trade and commerce in Bengal. EIC nature has changed from a commercial body to a military company and landed property, having landed properties and having political footprints. So a military company, military has a military, has now lands on which they can take the land revenue from themselves, and the political footprints they also got. Now it comes to the story that after the Battle of Plassey has happened, what happened to Bengal? Your Mir Jafar became the Nawab. So he was made Nawab by Robert Clive. Initially not accepted by the local zamindars. Local zamindars have said, who is this person? Because obviously they were more loyal. The local people, they were more loyal to the old Nawabs. Let's say Shuja-ud-Dawla or your Ali Wardi Khan. They will not like the people such as Mir Jafar who have betrayed their own brothers, isn't it? But the EIC said, no, we will help you with the military. And the plunder of the EIC started, the economic plunder of India or the Bengal. So for example, they got around 8 lakh rupees in silver coin. They got zamindari rights for so much money. Now, Mir Jafar later on, Mir Jafar removed on the pretext because Mir Jafar thought ki bhai, so much happening. My Bengal is getting poor after poor. Every Malai is enjoyed by the Britishers. Everything is enjoyed by the Britishers. What am I getting? So Mir Jafar decided that okay, I'll undertake. He's also getting old, so he said, I'll invite the Dutch to provide some competition to the Britishers. So he was removed on the pretext of the anti-British activity. Okay, and that happened. Battle of, remember, the Dutch came to Bengal on the pretext of the Mir Jafar, and hence he was removed by the Britishers on the anti-British activity, And at the same hand, the British also defeated the Dutch at the Battle of Bidara in 1759. We have discussed that previously. And the Mir Jafar finally was made to surrender. कि भाई, you have to surrender. Okay? So this is the story of Mir Jafar. Abhi he will return again. Okay? For his second stint at the job. So Mir Jafar was removed and the Mir Qasim has been made the governor. कि भाई चलो Mir Qasim, now you will be the Nawab of Bengal. Mir Jafar was like this, and the Mir Qasim, now you become. So when the Mir Qasim will come, he has to give some more consideration or more things to the Britishers. So he has given more territory to the East India Company, Burdwan, Mignapur, and half of the share in Salhet. We'll see this place and all the places you need to look homework. See all these places in the Google. ठीक है? इन सब locations को आपको Google करना है. He has to pay the bribe to the East India Company. So much money he has to pay. But later on, Mir Qasim has decided, because he was from a reformist mindset. He said, "No, I'll do the reforms. I will shift my capital." He has shifted his capital from Murshidabad to Munger. At that time, it was known as the Munger. It is known as Munger. That is in Bihar now. I will shift my capital. Then I will do the administrative reforms. I will modernize my army. I will do the financial reforms. He stops the Dastak system to the EIC, that you will not have these passes, you cannot issue these passes. So he said, I will not remain the puppet. Mir Qasim ne bola. Britishers again furious. They said, now Mir Qasim, you are done. Ab aap bhago yahan se. Your work is done. And that creates the background of the Battle of Buxar, the next battle that is coming. Now you have the Mir Qasim, who is reformist mindset, who wants to rule, but the British don't like him. You have, on the other hand, the other people. For example, we'll see. For example, you have a Mughal emperor who is watching this, what is happening in Bengal. He is watching that there is a period of anarchy, a period of unrest in Bengal, and he wants to regain his empire. From sitting in Delhi, he is sending some people to regain his control over Bengal. So you have Mir Qasim, you have a king, that is Shah Alam II, and you have a Nawab of Awadh who is also thinking that I can expand into the territories of the British, or of the Bengal, because Bengal was such a pricey possession, isn't it? The water is available, the land revenue is high, everything that you are getting. So now you have the three parties who want to come together and they want to beat the British. These are the three parties. That is, first is the Mir Qasim, then is Sujaud-Dawla, who is from the Awadh, who is the Nawab of Awadh. Then you have the next Shah Alam II, who is the Mughal emperor of that time. So as we have seen, the hostility between the Mir Qasim and the EIC increased, and the Mir Qasim was removed, and the Mir Jafar ko second term he has been given. Mir Qasim was removed, and Mir Qasim being removed, he goes to Awadh. He takes the patronage of the Mughal emperor. He said, let's come together and let us defeat the Britishers. And East India Company, led by Hector Munro, and they have defeated these three-party alliance, this triple alliance. Now this time EIC has not won. Buxar is a place in Bihar. Location I have said. It's a place in Bihar. It's a small port town in Bihar. Now this time British did not win because of their diplomacy or because of their treachery, but because of their top-class military superiority. So these were the three parties that were there. You have the Nawab of Awadh, that is Sujaud-Dawla from Awadh. You have the Shah Alam, who was a Mughal emperor, and you have the Mir Qasim, who wants to regain his place. And on the other hand, you have Robert Clive, led by the Hector Munro. Okay? And this was the battle, which was the battle of military superiority. And obviously, as we have discussed, these three parties have lost. Okay? When they lost, they have to sign a humiliating treaty known as the Treaty of Allahabad. In the Treaty of Allahabad, which was signed, Mir Qasim was no party to it. Nawab Sujaud-Dawla agreed to surrender the places of Allahabad and Kara to the Shah Alam II. First, he'll give to the Shah Alam II, and then from Shah Alam II, the Britishers will get. He has to pay some 50 lakh rupees to the company as a war indemnity. He has to give the Zamindar of the Banaras full possession of his state, who has helped the Britishers. So small thing that you need to remember, that these things happen Treaty of Allahabad. More importantly, this thing happened. Now Shah Alam too has to reside in Allahabad, and he will get some money from the Britishers. So Britishers at that time respected the Mughal authority. ठीक है, you lost, but you hold a symbolic influence. You don't do anything, we'll pay you the money. If they don't pay the Mughal emperor the money, people's sentiment were still attached to the Mughal emperor. And understand this. This will come handy in our next to next unit. British sentiments were attached to these Mughal emperor. कि भाई Mughal emperor हैं, they have ruled it over the period of 100 and 200 years, and they have not been very intrusive. They have helped us to grow. Akbar ka period, you see Shahjahan ka period, Jahangir ka period. So people's sympathies are there with the Mughal emperor. So the British thought, no, we'll give you some money so that the people do not feel offended. But on the other hand, they got the Diwani rights to take the revenue, to extract the revenue from the Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa. This is a very fundamental thing. Now the Britishers have got the right to extract the revenue from these three places. And this was the outcome of the Battle of Buxar and then the Treaty of Allahabad. Allahabad, now the name is changed to the Prayagraj. Now let us talk about the significance of the Battle of Buxar. If you talk about the significance of the Battle of Buxar, you can see, while the Plassey was the result of the diplomacy and the treachery, Mir Jafar, Manik Chand, you have these people, Jagat Seth, diplomacy and treachery, while the Buxar was a result of the might and the supremacy and strength of the British Empire. It represented the might and the strength of the Britishers. The Mughal emperor became the prisoners of the company, de facto prisoner of the company, isn't it? He'll be given the money, but he is the prisoner of the company. Now the doors were opened for Agra to Delhi for the company, because now in the north they have this Bengal, Bihar, Odisha. Awadh is subsided. Now there is no place, no one who can stop them to reach to the Delhi. Imagine the present day. Let's say a political party wins West Bengal, Bihar, UP, and UP they defeated. Now next part is they will become the prime minister, isn't it? So this is where the Britishers are going, and along with that the north south also, as we will see. And they became the great power of the north and the contender for the supremacy of the whole world, because there exists no power in the north which can challenge them now. There is no Mughal emperor who can challenge them. There is no Nawab of Awadh who can challenge them. Only the southern states are now the challenging them, Maratha and Mysore specifically. Right? Now, very quickly, last topic is remaining, that after the Battle of Buxar, what happened? After the Battle of Buxar happened the dual government in the Bengal. It is known as the system of the dual government in the Bengal. It was the brainchild of the Robert Clive. Okay. What is a dual government? Dual government means the basically two people will be running the government. One will be the Nawab. Nawab will do the Nijamat rights. Nijamat, the word means territory. So Nizamat rights will be taken up by the Nawab. So Nawab will take care of the defense, law and order, and justice. For example, courts, these prisoners and the law and order will be taken care of by the Nawab. On the other hand, the money wala thing, the fiscal thing, the Diwani rights are given to the East India Company. So for example, let's understand, you are saying to the Modi ji that why these protests are happening or why the rapes are happening. And on the other hand, you have given the taxation power to someone else. So on the one hand, the Nijamat rights with the Nawab, he has the responsibility without the power. And on the other hand, you have the Diwani rights to the Britishers, they have the power without any responsibility. Responsibility क्या होती है social contract में? In the social contract, the responsibility to protect the people lies with the, for example, what is social contract? Social contract is what? When you have the state and you have the people. Let's say this is the state. State gives the protection to the people and the people pay money to the state. But here you have two states, 1 and 2. One is getting the money and second is protecting. So the Nawab becomes only the puppet ruler. And all the money is in the hands of the British. And whenever something happens, British say, Nawab, what are you not doing? And that dual government caused a lot of chaos. So many chaos. this dual system of government, the consequences are very poor. For example, the merchants were reduced to beggars. Why? Because the British were now producing or putting their own goods, and their goods are having free trade. That means no custom duty, 0% custom duty. While the Indian merchants have to pay 40% of the revenue as the tax, British merchants don't have to pay anything. So merchants were reduced to beggars. The peasants under the British revenue collection system, we will see, they were reduced. A lot of revenue was extracted from them without giving anything in return. A lot of money were taken out of them without giving them anything. So British revenue system की वजह से the peasants were like this. Administration was very chaotic. You can understand why you have not done this. I don't have money. Nawab will say, "Yeah, why you are not having police there? I don't have money to pay." Britishers को बोलते हैं, तो it is the responsibility of the Nawab. Just like Delhi government, है ना? Lieutenant Governor and Arvind Kejriwal. Then you have the officials who are becoming rich. The East India Company officials who are becoming rich. So the administration, the trade, the peasantry, and the industry, everything very poor. And hence, when the after the Clive, Warren Hastings comes in and he says, "I will abolish this dual system of government," because this is ultimately hampering the East India Company's long-term sustainability as well. Because if the administration is chaotic, it gives rise to a lot of problems. For example, in this period, Bengal experienced a lot of famines also, a lot of famines. So when you have these things, how will in the long run they'll get the land revenue if they will not get the money? So Warren Hastings came and said, no, 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 these things will not continue, and he will abolish this dual government system. So this is being now abolished in 1773. So this is the story of Bengal that we have discussed. Okay. Now there is one practice question for you. It's a third means practice question, I think. Yes, that's third question. Give an account of the development that led to the Battle of Plassey in 1757. Also discuss its historical importance. What is the historical importance of the Battle of Plassey? And give an account of the development that led to it. Now let us discuss a few questions and then we'll wrap up the session. With reference to the Battle of Buxar, consider the following statements. In this battle, the French force defeated the combined Bengal, Awadh, and Mughal forces. In the Battle of Buxar, Treaty of Allahabad was signed to conclude the battle. Company got Diwani rights of Bengal, Bihar, Odisha after the battle. What I'll suggest you, as I always do, please pause the video and try the answer. Then see the solution. Okay? Read the question properly. Now, let's come to solution. So in this battle, the French forces, no, French were not there. So first statement, that is wrong. It is the British forces defeated. So when first is wrong, you eliminate the first thing you do like this. And that is why I solve a lot of question in front of you. This is the way you can adapt while you also do MCQ questions. So first is wrong. Then you have the third statement becomes right in any way. So don't check the third question. It is right anyway. I have to check only the second one. So Treaty of Allahabad was signed to conclude the battle. Yes, it is true. So the statement 2 and 3 are fine and the answer is B. Okay? So answer is your B. Next is consider the following statement with reference to the administration by the Nawab of the Bengal in the first half of the 18th century. They granted the Takkavi loans to the poor cultivators to relieve their distress and enable them to pay the land revenue in time. Many of the highest civil and military posts were occupied by Bengali Hindus. The Nawab of the Bengal invested in building a large and strong army. Obviously, we have not taught this, and that's what I've said, that the reforms and the administrative side we'll do through questions. Now, for example, let's talk about it. Now, Murshid Quli Khan has introduced the system of revenue farming. Revenue farming basically is different from the subsistence farming. Subsistence farming क्या होता है? The farming that is you are doing it for only for, let's say, food and rice and all this. Revenue farming also means you are doing the cash crops. He introduced the system of revenue farming. For that, he recruited revenue farmers and officials from the local zamindar and merchant bankers. He granted the Takkavi, T-A-C-C-A-V-I. So these are the agricultural loans given to the poor cultivators to relieve their distress as well as enable them to pay the land revenue in time. Thus, he was able to exercise the resources of the Bengal government, but the system of the revenue farming led to increased economic pressure on the zamindar and the peasants. Murshid Quli Khan and the succeeding Nawabs give equal treatment to the employment to the Hindus and the Muslims. In fact, you can see while choosing the revenue farmers, Murshid Quli Khan gave preference to the local zamindars and mahajans who were mainly Hindus. And that is why you have the condition in the Bengal where you have a lot of rich Hindus and very poor Muslim peasantry. So peasantry was mainly Muslims, and you have the money lenders and the rich people being Hindu. All these Nawabs recognized the expansion of the trade benefited the people, and at the same time, they made it a point to maintain the strict control on the foreign trading company and the servants and prevented them from misusing their privileges. That's we have seen. And that happened specifically after 1717 when these Nawabs getting independent, and the company also got strong because of the Farooq Siyar's Farman. But Bengali Nawabs proved to be short-sighted and negligent in one aspect, that is, they did not build a large army. They did not have the huge army that we have also seen in the Battle of Plassey and as well. Plassey se to matlab nahi, but Battle of Buxar. So they did not firmly put down the increasing tendency of the East India Company to use military forces and to threaten disuse and to get their demand accepted. They failed to see that East India Company was no more a company of trader but a representative of the most aggressive and the expansionist colonialism of the time. Hence, the Bengal Nawabs are short-sighted in this particular regard. Okay. Okay, so they did not build a strong army, and army of Murshid Quli Khan for only, for example, 2,000 cavalry, that is the horses, and the infantry people, normal people. Ali Vardi Khan constantly troubled by the repeated invasion of the Marathas, and at the end has to cede a large part of Odisha to them. In 56-57, they declared war on Sirajud-Dowla, and he did not have the large army. So this is why your first statement is right. They granted Takvi loan, yes, to the poor cultivators. Many of the highest civil and the military posts were occupied by the Bengali Hindu, yes. And the third option is wrong. That is, they did not build a large and strong army. So with this question, we have learned a lot. Let's see next question. With reference to the dual administration of Bengal, consider the following statement. It was an outcome of the Treaty of Allahabad. It started by the Robert Clive and ended by Warren Hastings. The Nawab retained the right to revenue collection while the company controlled the police and the judicial function. Very easy question. You can pause the video and try the answer. Very easy question. Acha, these questions seems to be easy now. Let me just remind you. I've reminded you last time also. May seems to be easy now, but when you will complete your modern history whole these things, these questions will become, acha, I need to recall. If you have not revised properly, these questions will be a tough questions. So obviously the first statement is right, the second statement is right, and third statement is wrong. So answer will be 1 and 2. Okay, so discuss करने की भी जरूरत नहीं. You can read in your PDF that will be given to you. So 1 and 2 is right. Let's go to the next question. In the context of the modern Indian history, the Blackhole Tragedy in the 18th century is related to the ill treatment of the indentured Indian labor, the death of number of prisoners in the dungeon in the Fort William, a famine in Bengal in which more than 1 million people perished, outcasting and brutal treatment of the youth of the Bengal who were educated along the western lines. The Blackhole Tragedy is basically what? It was an ill treatment of the it was sorry, it was not the ill treatment, it was the death of the number of prisoners in the dungeon in the Fort William. Okay, so we have discussed the whole Blackhole Tragedy. Just I'll go a bit beyond. So during the tenure of Lord Curzon that we'll see in 1899 to 1905, later on, he installed an unimpressive monument that is known as the Holwell Monument to mark the Blackhole incident and pay respect to the survivor. In 1940s, Indian National Congress, Subhash Chandra Bose actively took up the anti-monument movement to remove the Holwell Monument. You can see the British will remember this event as an, for example, atrocity committed by the Indians on the Britishers. They will remember like this. On the other hand, the Indians, the Indian nationalist Indians will say, okay, yes, it was done wrong, but it was not that much wrong as the British are exaggerating, for example. Okay? So forward block, the nationalist will say, okay, no, this thing is not there. And what these people will do, you can see. So these people will celebrate is that the Sirajud-Dowla Day. The third 1940 is going to be observed in Bengal as Sirajud-Dowla Day in the honor of the last independent king of the Bengal. The Holwell Monument is not merely unwarranted stain on the memory of Nawab, but also stood in the heart of the Bengal for last 150 years and as a symbol of the slavery and humiliation. The monument must go. So this is an article in the forward block. We'll discuss more about it, but just I want to highlight that Howell monument is attached to the tragedy of the Blackhole tragedy. Lord Curzon has made this monument, and later on it has a huge legacy, to, so as to say. Okay. So answer is number, death of the prisoners in the dungeon of the Fort William. The last question, repeated question basically. With reference to the 18th century Bengal, the term takvi refers to. Takvi हमने देखा है क्या है? New architectural design? No. System of assessment of agricultural revenue? No. Money given to the nobles for providing safety? No. Loans given to the poor cultivator? Yes. So it was the loan given to the poor cultivators. I have told you that these terms are very, very important in your ancient medieval history and your modern history. Okay? So keep in mind these terms. So ये हम पढ़ चुके हैं. Okay? So these are the loans given to the poor cultivator. So with this, we finish our fourth session. The next session will be focused on the story of the Mysore, and we will look at it. So till then, bye bye. Thank you. See you in the next session.